All right, welcome back everybody to your weekly episode on Solving the People Puzzle, hosted by myself, Francois, where every week I interview and have a wonderful conversation with industry leaders from the human capital environment. And today is such a privilege for me to have Khumbulani on the call. Khumbulani, thank you so much for joining the podcast. If you can kick us off by just sharing a bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you very much, Francois. My name is Khumbulani Vezi. I'm with Adcock Ingram in the prescription division. I'm the head of human capital. I'm just over a year now with the company. And in total, I would say I have over 24 years experience in the HR field.
Sure. 24 years of experience. You've probably seen so much change happening in HR over these years, eh?
No, you're quite right. It's an evolving field. And also, I think what adds, spice to it is the fact that I've worked for different industries. When I started in the sugar industry, moved to paper packaging and printing, found myself in the chemical space, retail, and then eventually I landed, in the pharmaceutical space.
What an amazing, vast landscape of experience. So for the audience out there, you and I met at the HR Indaba this year. We were part of a panel discussion, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was so insightful. And that's really why I wanted to have you introduce you to our podcast, because I think I learned so much just in that small period, sharing the stage with you at the HR Indaba. So thank you again for being here. Just some context, Solving the People Puzzle is a podcast we bring to the HR community every week, where we share insights, where we share practical tips and tools, initiatives, techniques to really bring value to the HR community. And when you and I offline spoke about the topic, I got really excited because, one, it's something we haven't spoken about directly to, and something that I know you are passionate about. So the topic today is around burnout, employee burnout in the midst of employee well-being initiatives. So maybe for the audience, Khumbulani, out there who goes, what does that mean? Can we start off by just a general definition from your side or your idea around these topics?
Yeah. Thanks and greetings to your audience. I think it's also an opportune topic, given that we sort of winding the year down and almost everyone is looking forward to December holidays.
Yes.
Definitely in the Southern Hemisphere, it's hot and nice. It's time to go to the beach. In the Northern Hemisphere, they have the white Christmas. So really from an HR or human capital or people perspective, it is really important to understand, that employees, they also go through what is called burnout, or they go through fatigue. And fatigue can be in various forms. It can be physical in terms of just being tired to wake up and actually prepare yourself to go to work. Or it could be mental as well, where also your mind sort of locks and you no longer can assimilate things or look forward to work, and you just say, look, I actually hate going to that place. So it comes in different formats. And also I would say, maybe to set the context, we're really living in a period of pandemics. We've all experienced COVID in the last 2 to 3 years, and basically that really tested our propensity to actually withstand the pressures that came with the COVID. All of us were affected, in one way or the other. I, for one, lost a couple of relatives, through COVID, and friends as well. So and I think mental, wellness is actually becoming a topical topic, for want of a better word, at this time and age.
Yeah. Look, I can't agree with you more. I lost my mom in that period. It really was a deep emotional time for all of us, as you say, one way or another. To circle back to burnout, in the previous podcast, we spoke with an 18-year-old. He calls himself the Gen Z guy. And he was referring to burnout and mental health and mental illness as almost a trendy topic at the moment, at least from a communication and exposure perspective. I mean, it's been around forever, but there really has been a light being shining on the topic and a lot of awareness being created. In your 24 years, has this always been the case, or do you agree that lately or recently, it's been spoken about more?
Yeah. No, look, I would say it has never been. It's we're seeing a new trend, and let me digress for a minute. I come from a very spiritual background, myself and my wife. So we devout Christians, but she's a scientist, and we sometimes talk about diseases that were there. I'm talking now 5,000, 6,000 years ago that we are seeing coming because the Bible says there is nothing new under the sun. So whatever was there, it will come back again. So even this, my mother always talks about leprosy. I never experienced it. Obviously, my mom, she was born in 1934. She saw it in person. And now, so some of these diseases are actually because the earth is taking strain. If you look at COVID, the earth was taking a strain and it needed to cleanse itself. I'm talking the natural. I'm not talking the people. Obviously, as a result, we had the illness itself. Regardless of what might have happened in China and in the factory there, or it was all the theories that comes or that are out there, in the public domain. So to answer your question, this is a new trend, and we're talking with a couple of friends to say, of late, especially with the Gen Z, we're seeing a lot of these kids committing suicide, mainly because they are failing to actually withstand the pressures that comes with life, and they're starting the work environment. We've had to look at our policies and change them, to accommodate, these kids, if I can put it like that, because
Yeah.
they want flexibility. These kids are very big on forex. They make serious money. They are very big on trading, all of those things. And they want flexibility. When they come here, they want to come in at 10 and work for 2 hours and go elsewhere and work for 2 hours, that type of thing. So if you're an organization, you are not accommodating in terms of that, then they just say, thank you, bye. They're
Yeah.
just chasing the money, whereas I'm chasing loyalty. We are the loyal one. We bid our time. I want to work until I retire. I look after my
Yeah.
pension fund. They live for the now. So it's that
Yeah.
instant gratification, what we call syndrome, that is prevalent among these kids. So with that also, you're seeing a lot of societal pressures. I mean, trading itself, I believe, I'm not a trader by any means, but I believe you can make millions within a split, within a second or a couple of minutes, but you can also lose. That on
Yeah.
its own adds to the pressure. So you can imagine if in your account you had, let's say, 10 million rands, and then 30 minutes later, we are on 10 rand. You
Yeah. You
bound
wiped out.
actually, yeah, to have that mental, to be mentally disturbed, for lack of a better way. And this also we see being translated into the world of work, if I can put it in that way.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up because obviously there are various contexts. There's the work, there's the home, there's the personal life, there's the social life, there's the pressure, the ability to deal with it, the resources attached to, from a money perspective, but also from a support perspective. So I mean, the causes of burnout or fatigue or mental illness are vast, and I don't think neither you nor me are clinical psychologists, so we're probably not going to dive into that too much. But I think the reality is, and for the audience listening, it is there. And we can either choose to ignore it or we can choose to address it. Now, I always say that for you to be able to address it, there one needs to be the acknowledgement and the awareness that it exists. Because I have seen, unfortunately, organizations and leaders just brush it off. Cowboys don't cry, the world is hard, deal with it, go on. I don't think we can take that stance anymore. But from a human capital perspective, Khumbulani, and the role that you are in, before we get to the initiative parts of well-being, how would you say are you approaching the awareness side of it
Okay.
and making it psychologically safe?
Yeah, I think let me backtrack. I like your opening statement about clinical psychology. Fortunately for me, I've got a psychology degree. So I've got, and at some stage back in 93 or 94, I used to work a lot with psychologists at university as part of the internship, to understand. It was more on the child psychology, clinical psychology. So to answer you a little bit, I'm not going to delve into it because that's not the purpose for today. These diseases, conditions, they do exist. So we have what is called the DSM-5, which is a manual of psychological diseases that are there in the world. But
Yeah.
I don't want to dwell on psychology because it will confuse people. how I approach it, or what has helped me, is the fact that also from a spiritual being, you need to balance yourself, spiritually. And spiritually, I'm not talking Christianity, I'm talking any form, of whatever you find works for you. You could be a Christian, you could be a Hindu, you could be a Jew, you could be believing in Islam, whatever you could be believing in traditional African, what you call religion, that's fine. Whatever you believe in. So you find that these youngsters, they don't believe none of that stuff because they are young. They don't identify. For them, it's like if I say I believe in ancestors, they will say like, dude, what does that mean? That type of thing. I'm not going to church, that type of thing. So the whole mindset shift that is actually contributing to the whole thing around mental issues. So basically, they battle to actually survive in terms of dealing with depression, serious depression, and all the attacks that we are seeing in the world. But to come back to your question, just remind me what was the exact question.
From an Adcock perspective, in the corporate world of work where you're sitting, what are some of the contributing initiatives to create the awareness that it is psychologically safe for me to at times not be okay?
Yeah, so we've got a number of various initiatives. One of them is Speak Up, where we encourage our employees to talk about these things. We also have an employee wellness program through a service provider called ICAS. Basically, you get a card with a toll-free number, and then you can actually call them, you and your direct family members. So you could have lost family members, you could be going through some financial difficulties in the form of having, let's say you've had your house repossessed or your car. It could be stress and anxiety, or any form of stress, basically, or mental illness. And then you get a number of sessions per family, where a counselor basically will have a chat with you. Usually it's done through the phone, for a number of sessions. And if there is a need to actually intervene deeper, and then it's done in person, where you also see a psychologist, a relevant person. Let me not say a psychologist. It depends on the nature of the illness, a
Yes.
relevant person, and then you see those people, and then we are able to actually deal with the issue at hand.
Okay, so I'm hearing you saying two things. One, there's an encouragement or a culture or an environment created where people should feel safe to speak up.
Correct.
Are you seeing that happening? Do people have the relevant confidence to say, I'm not okay? Because in my opinion, or at least my experience, that's not an easy thing to do for a lot of individuals.
So for me, you as a human capital or HR, we need to be very versatile. So
Yeah.
fortunately for me, I have a team that is like me, in the sense that we're able to adjust and adapt to different situations, and understand different cultures as well, and how to treat and welcome people. I could easily have somebody that could come to me and say they're a Sangoma, or they've got a calling, which I say a lot. And then I've got the wisdom and the experience to actually deal with a situation of that sort. And I could be having somebody that says, "Look, I've got a gambling problem,
Yeah.
and I'm able to deal with all of this." So that's the thing with HR. You end up being a doctor, more of a psychological doctor, because you solve people problems, or you
Yeah.
listen to them, and you
Yeah.
channel them accordingly. So
Yeah.
so we seeing a lot of people opening up. Initially it was not easy. So part of the initiative, this was for us to go on road shows. Initially we did it via Teams meetings, and then we engaged in road shows across the country with the team,
Okay.
to ensure that people are aware that we actually have these things. They are in place, and they are there, and they are free, to be utilized. Over and above that, for instance, what we're doing with our MD, we have these monthly socials. So once a month, like beginning of the month, like tomorrow is the 1st of December, or whatever it is, let's say it's on Thursday, where in the afternoon we have a bar on site, and then people can have drinks. They have wine, we socialize. Obviously we'll speak about the results and business performance and so forth. But 90% of it is more just to chill. It's a chill environment. People have wine, have drinks, food, that type of thing. And I found that it works. It encourages people to actually speak up in a safe space, without being judged, or fear of being reprimanded.
100%. And two comments on that. I think, firstly, not everybody in the HR community naturally is inclined to want to necessarily engage with some of these conversations that you mentioned your employees are feeling confident to have with you. And therefore, it is so important to be able to systemize it, which leads me to the second point where you went on road shows, first through Teams, then real road shows, communicated to the employees what the program is about, that it doesn't cost anything, encouraging them to speak up, creating that awareness, and then socializing it informally through regular interaction, which ultimately is the big thing that was missed in COVID, right? There wasn't that interaction opportunities anymore. And I see it everywhere I go, the conferences we attend. I mean, the vibe at the HR Indaba this year was just so great because people were so glad to just be back around people. Yes. And I guess it's exactly the same in the organization. The psychological safety is the environment that is created by leadership so that people can feel safe and heard. Because more often than not, that might be the only place where you are heard. You might go back home and there's abuse or there's trauma. You might not have anybody to go home to, maybe a dog. So the responsibility that we've got in creating the environment is so important. Otherwise, these initiatives actually don't work if people don't feel safe to speak up. Do you agree?
100% correct. They become more theoretical or in paper. So we put an emphasis. In fact, we've got a whole wellness strategy that we've put in place as an organization. And we look at different variables in terms of how do we best engage our employees. Because for me, wellness, for instance, is one of my scorecards. So it's number one there, in terms of priorities to ensure that our employees. I mean, interestingly enough, we also sell a lot of medication that deals, that treats depression.
I was just about to say, there's a bit of an edge there because you also have the medicine.
Exactly, but I'm not in the medicine. I'm not in the pharmaceutical space. I'm in the people space. But yeah, so it's also more about being intentional about your wellness strategy.
Yes.
I'll make an example. When we're at the KZN floods, we had to quickly activate our response, to say, teams in various divisions, what can we do? So we did something as an organization, but we also asked our employees to, whoever is willing, to go out there and assist. I mean, I was in Johannesburg, but I've got family in Durban, and we had to, reach out to people and say, what can we do? So as an organization, employees were donating stuff even to us. And then we had to ship them to Durban through trucks and so forth. And then our distribution center in Durban, in Nanda Drive there, then it had to distribute all of these things. So it's part of those initiatives, that, makes a difference. Obviously, we can only do what we can, and then other people also need to chip in. But the good thing is that it's also see the collaboration between the employer and the employees, for a common purpose in terms of dealing with the whole disasters that had struck in KZN.
Yeah, I mean, that's wonderful. I want to circle back to two things you mentioned for the audience. This is so important. One, Khumbulani mentioned that there is a wellness strategy. So there's a business initiative linked to a wellness strategy, and it's on your scorecard, which means you get measured on that. So because, again, back to measurement and data, you mentioned the word engagement, job satisfaction, burnout, silent quitting is a new thing that we're hearing that's happening. All of these should be measurable, because how do we know our people are happy or they are engaged or they have energy to perform their required duties? That should be measured. And so often some of these wellness programs, are quite once off. We get together here very quickly, but it's not really measurable. And so I would love your opinion on the measurement or the data behind a quite emotional conversation, which in itself is a bit of a dichotomy. Like, how do we quantify? But you agree it should, in a way, we should be able to measure it?
So, I believe in the adage that you cannot control what you cannot measure. So for me, HR needs to have data, available data at the tips of their hand, and that's how they make a difference in any organization. So what we have done 2 years ago, or last year, we did an engagement survey, just to check the pulse of the organization, where we asked our employees various questions, and then we were able to summarize the data after doing the research, the analysis, and then we picked up 7 things that prevailed to say, actually, these are the burning things within the organization. Hence, the initiatives that I spoke about earlier on, most of them emanate, from that survey. And then we have done that, and we've come with the initiatives. Now we'll be doing another survey come next year around June, July, but we'll do a calibration just to track and see if we're on the right track,
Okay.
come January, which is like a pseudo or a mini survey to see how far we've gone, looking, flashback and looking forward as well, and then take it from there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And to the audience listening, this is really important from HR, who needs to own the responsibility, but also the ability to listen to the employees. So a survey is a great example of gathering data, collating it into themes, and then building initiatives around the themes, not only to ensure that the employees understand that you are listening and hearing them, but also to drive that strategic initiative, which is on your scorecard forward, which is around the well-being and the initiatives. Khumbulani, that's fantastic. I would love for us to land the plane. If someone is listening right now and they don't have any strategy in place, what advice could you give the audience around where to start?
Look, depending on your level, I mean, there could be HR people listening. I would say, to them, start by, drafting a policy. Have a policy in place, wellness policy in place, and then basically that will inform your strategy in terms of wellness, which will obviously fit into the people or the HR strategy. But for a layman, for want of a better word, I would say reach out to people,
Yes.
regardless of your generation. You could be a Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen whatever that is there. Reach out to people. So it's twofold for me. Find the purpose in life. We're all created by God, whether you believe He exists or not, to connect with Him in one way or the other. Find a way of connecting to God. And I'm not prescribing any religion or anything. It could be yoga, it could be meditation, it could be whatever that helps, on the one hand. Secondly, as my parting shot, I would say, you must never underestimate, the power of going through psychologists, when you're going through difficult stuff. So now I'm
Yes.
talking about two things here. One is the spiritual element of it, and the other one is the professional element of it. To say, go out there and seek help. And then,
Yes.
and if you can combine both, then that's awesome, because you have both of both worlds, and then you'll be right. You'll be back on shape.
Sure, that's power. I think I want to iterate what you're saying. There's a responsibility on the organization to have a structure, a strategy, and a policy in place with initiatives attached to outcomes that are measurable. But then there is also the psychological safety that needs to be created on an individual level for people to understand that they can speak up, that it is okay, that they are not alone, that the entire world, especially certain generations, are going through this. It is real, it's relevant, it's crazy times we're living in. And then on a very personal level, to connect spiritually as well as professionally to help, so that you're able to navigate the ambiguity, the fear, the anxiety, and the emotions that are attached to burnout. Thank you so much, Khumbulani, for the insight, the wisdom, the practical tips and tools, sharing a bit about your story. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
You are more than welcome. Thank you very much.